Enia Krivine is the Senior Director of the Israel Program and National Security Network with the Foundation for Defense of Democracy. She's also lobbied on behalf of Israel here in the United States. Enia, according to the Times, this plan didn't have a date on it, but Hamas wound up following it almost to the letter. How should Israeli security forces have handled it to actually prevent the attack?
Good evening. There's no excuse for what happened in Israel. It was a failure of massive proportion, and it was an intelligence failure on multiple fronts. So let me start by saying this. However, I've spoken with former national security advisors, more than one, and when I asked them this very question, how could it happen with or without forewarning or blueprint, they said, look, we get thousands of pieces of intel every single day warning us about attacks from the west, the south, the north. You know, it's a human error that they simply did not lock on to this one and understand what it actually meant. But as I said before, Hamas was also carrying out a very impressive misinformation and disinformation campaign against Israel. Israel believed that Hamas had moderated. They thought that Hamas were able to plan for the future and actually build a horizon for their people. So it was a combination of a massive and inexcusable intelligence failure and a successful mis- and disinformation campaign on the part of Hamas.
But
yes, I've seen the report. No, I don't think it's as earth-shattering as some.
How do you not think it is earth-shattering? I mean, they basically said that they were going to knock out the systems that surrounded the wall. They were going to use paragliders and motorcycles, which is exactly what they did. They said that they were going to storm several kibbutzes, which they did. How can it not be viewed as an explosive document?
So the earth-shattering and explosive fact is that this attack was allowed to happen. And I think that heads will roll for that. There will be a moment of accountability when the war is done. And yes, it was a massive intelligence failure. And the fact that they actually had this report in their files and there were people ringing the alarm is shocking. I agree. However, there's no secret that Hamas wanted to do this. I mean, not only Hamas, but Hezbollah in the north of Israel had similar plans. There has been a long-standing goal of these terrorist organizations to invade Israel and take those communities captive, whether in the south by Hamas or the north by Hezbollah. And as the New York Times article said, the assessment of Israel was that it was overambitious, they didn't have the wherewithal to do it, and they were wrong. And for that, there will be an inquiry and accountability. To
your point, there was a woman who says she knew some of the hostages. She says that, yes, the government did fail its people, but she tells CNN that that doesn't mean that anyone should let Hamas off the hook. Take a listen to what she said.
My government was busy weakening the judicial system and hurting our democracy throughout this year. And they were too busy on that instead of keeping our borders and keeping the civilians safe. And of course, we feel betrayed by our prime minister and by this government. But once again, the only ones to blame is the Hamas organization, terror organization. They were the ones who were taking babies out of their beds, not anyone else.
So, Enia, what does accountability look like when this war eventually ends?
Accountability looks like an inquiry, as there was after the 73 war and after the Second Lebanon war. And leaders of Israel's intelligence communities have already stepped up and said we were wrong. We were misled by Hamas, we failed, and they've already committed to stepping down when the war is over. So there will be accountability. The Israelis, it's a democracy. They will make sure that, that the next round of election reflects who they think is guilty for this horrible thing that happened to their country. And that is what happens in a democracy. There is accountability. Very different, of course, to what we see on the other side of the conflict with Hamas, of people that have essentially thrown 2 million Gazans under the bus with this bloody attack. And now the civilians are paying the price.
Enia, are you concerned about the optics now in Gaza as this war continues to be prosecuted? Because Benjamin Netanyahu We saw his polling numbers there. They are tanking, but the longer this war lives on, rages on, the longer he survives politically. First of all, will he survive, and should he? But also, how concerned are you about a wag the dog scenario in which the war could wind up being cover for him to survive?
Netanyahu's poll numbers were low going into this war. There was a horrible internal division going on. It was being exacerbated, as the speaker that you just had on from Israel was talking about. His numbers were already low. And there's absolutely, I want to make this crystal clear because I've heard different things from different networks. No one benefits in Israel from this war. There is no upside from what happened. And it can only be, Israel will come through this. Israel will come through this strong. It has been united and has an incredible resolve in the face of this tragedy. But there has been no upside for the country, no upside for any politician. So Netanyahu, I believe he will not survive politically after this war. And that I've said that from the beginning. I don't see that changing. But in the face of all of this difficulty, there is an incredible sense of unity in Israel. I was there a week after the massacres, and I felt it, and it remains till today. And just like that woman who was on before me, everyone in Israel, though they may dislike their government, they may dislike Netanyahu, they know who to blame for what happened.
And I've only got 20 seconds left. Should Congress demand answers before writing checks this time?
So Congress, every dollar that Congress gives has restrictions on it. Every aid, every
and answers of Netanyahu about how this intelligence failure happened.
So I think that Congress is doing the right thing by supporting Israel. I think they should continue to support beleaguered democracies. I think Israel's on the just side of this war, and I think putting additional conditions on those dollars to tie Israel's hand is the exact wrong thing to do at this moment.
Enia Krivine, thanks for being with us tonight.